want to welcome our speakers, and first there will be Ms. Billy Sue Payne speaking about the history of the First United Methodist Church, and then we'll have Ms. Susan Arlo, and she's going to speak on the Methodist Cemetery. So, Billy Sue, if you would like to go first.
I'm going to go. Suzanne's going to go first.
Suzanne's going to go first. Okay,
She's going to set me up.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you. I will apologize first for my voice. It's East Texas is here upon us. Well, Buster, what'd you do with my glasses? Got them hanging on my neck, okay. The Methodist Church Cemetery, 1861 to 1939. The First United Methodist Church Cemetery is located behind the church on Payne Street, being one of the oldest in Shelby County. Located in the Nancy Smith survey on land deeded by Judge M.W. Wheeler and then by Sam Sanford. In Sanford's will he wrote, "I deed the land to my beloved church and burying ground for generations to come." The First Methodist Episcopal Church South was organized during the early part of 1866, during or after the town of Center was established. The first church and the Sam Sanford Lodge, number 149, building was located on the north side of the cemetery. The top floor was to be used by the lodge, and the ground floor would be a meeting place for the Methodist and the Baptist churches. The cost was $760, with the lodge paying $518 and the church paying $250. The first burial was that of a baby, Gerald Chandler, in 1860, before the grounds became a cemetery. There are many historically significant Shelby County citizens buried here. Not all are Methodist. To name a few, the Reverend James R. Burke, one of our first pastors at our church, Elkanah Sanford, first worthy master of the Sam Sanford Lodge, number 149, and his wife, Civil War veterans and their wives, A.R. Chandler and family members. They owned much of the land where East Center is and Fairview Cemetery. The best-known person is R.L. Parker, considered the father of Center. He was the county clerk in 1866. He secretly, or according to who you talk to, stole the records from Shelbyville and moved them to Center, making Center the county seat. If you were here last month, Teddy Hopkins gave a wonderful program on the life of Mr. Parker. In the late 80s, a member of our church gave a sizable donation to the Reynolds Chapel Sunday School class, designated to be used on improving grounds of the cemetery. A black chain-link fence already outlined the perimeter of the grounds. Nell Polly and members of the class took on the project. First azaleas, crepe myrtles, roses, and other shrubs were planted. Beds were outlined with border bricks set in cement. Flagstone walkways connect the interior of the cemetery, and there are several benches, a table with seating. Then a sprinkler system was installed. Needless to say, this is probably one of a very few cemeteries that has one. Several years ago, Nell asked if I would take over the care of the grounds. Since then, all of the tombstones and monuments have been cleaned and repaired, and I've tried to maintain the grounds. I don't consider our cemetery to be a sad place, but rather a peaceful setting where you can walk or sit and meditate. We invite anyone who would like to do so. We've already had several school groups through the years studying the history of the cemetery. The cemetery is owned by the First Methodist Church. The sign on the gate reads 1861 to 1939. This would designate the first and last burial after the grounds were designated as a cemetery. Gerald Chandler, 1860, and Polly Brogdon Amison Holt, 1939. There are approximately 107 graves, and some are not marked. Last summer, the cemetery received the Shelby Beautification Award, which we're very proud of. Also, I am in the process of trying to get the Texas historical marker for the cemetery. I could not have sent the information to the state without the help of Teddy Hopkins and Reese Stanley. You can now go online or come to the museum and print out an application. I was warned at that time that I know what I was getting into. Well, I had no idea, but I had told too many people what I was going to do to be able to back out. And as most of you know, the application is quite detailed. There are 8 pages of instructions, the most important being a cemetery must be at least 50 years old and deemed worthy of recognition for its historical associations. You have to have documented proof of everything that you send in. Now, I have been notified by the state office our application has been received. Believe you me, I mailed it insured and return receipt requested. Our application is number 207 in line to be reviewed, and that may take 12 to 18 months. If accepted, there will have to be other information documented and entered into their database, then a confirmation, and we should receive a certificate. And after that, the marker application will go to the state office with a check for the marker. I just hope I'm alive to see it come in, or Teddy will have to take over. And as I said before, the First United Methodist Church owns the cemetery. Trustees of the church maintain and make the decisions pertaining this historical cemetery. Now, I've made copies of the cemetery roster that Leonard Irish and Ray Jackson made of the listing of tombstones. If any would like to have a copy, you may find a distant relative that's buried here. Thank you. Now, I have these. Would anyone like a copy of the rosters? Okay.
The early records were lost of our church because the Sam Sanford Lodge building burned. But it is believed the church was founded in early 1866, as Suzanne said, as the Methodist Episcopal Church South. By 1870, the church and the local Masons built the building, where the Methodists were on the bottom floor and the Masons on the second floor. And around 1877, the Baptists joined that building. The first circuit pastor we have recorded was Reverend J.T. Smith of the Shelbyville Circuit from 1880 to 1883. I assume that there were others, but those records, as I say, have been lost. There were 6 more pastors from 1884 to 1894. We were in the Shelbyville Circuit first, then we were in the Timpson Circuit. C.F. Smith was the pastor when the first church building was built in 1892. This building served the church until 1927, when the present building was built. The cornerstone of the 1892 building read, M.E. Church South, A.J. Frick, P.E., which means presiding elder, G.F. Smith, P.C., which means presiding charge. Trustees were W.P. Wilson and E.S. Hicks. Building committee, H.N. Runnels, B.F. Bridges, and J.R. Swansea. The builder was W.H. Graycoft. In 1907, the building was valued at $7,000 and the parsonage and lot were valued at $2,500. But nowhere did I find, and I'm going to go back and relook when the first parsonage was actually built. In the summer of 1915, the church Sunday school averaged 321 people and had the best Sunday school in the St. Augustine district. In 1922, the church averaged 340 in attendance, with the leaders striving for 400. In 1927, the church district was changed to the Nacogdoches district, where it remained until a few years ago, and now we are a part of the Lufkin district. In 1892, the 1892 church was in bad repair, and the leaders of the church decided on building our present building. In August of 1927, they needed more money to complete the present church building and borrowed $7,500 at 8% interest from F.E. Parker and Howard C. Parker to complete the project. And I'm going to read you something that was in our records from the Champion. The new First Methodist Church of Center is nearing completion. This is August the 10th, 1927. It is the intention of the pastor, Reverend J.F. Kidd, to have everything ready for the first service the first Sunday in October. The building will cost at least $40,000. This includes the pipe organ and other necessary features to make the complete church. The length in the clear is 104 feet and the width is 72 feet. This means inside measurement. The building, counting the basement, will be 3 stories in height, and each story is built for service and best possible use for the purposes designated, the church and Sunday school. The cornerstone arrived this morning and contains this inscription: 1927, E. J. Harris, presiding elder, J. F. Kidd, pastor, J. M. Sanders, J. O. Cooper, W. A. Bridges, trustees. Building committee, J. A. Sanders, Dr. W. C. Wyndham, D. F. McKnight, H. C. Parker, Mrs. R. V. Payne, Mrs. G. L. Palmer, and Mrs. J. M. Sanders. Work on the building started April 20th. The location is on Tenaha Street, which I found very interesting. The contractor is N.O. Thomas & Sons, and the architect W.C. Metter. J.F. Pigg is in charge of the work. The new church will be modern in every aspect. In the basement, there are a number of departments: Sunday school rooms for beginners under 4 years and primary departments for children 5, 6, 7, and 8 years. These rooms are large and well arranged. An accordion sliding and receding wall shuts these rooms off, and if necessary can be arranged as to give enlargement to the large room directly in front, at the far end of which is a large and substantial rostrum. The rostrum will be for the purpose of staging plays and such church and Sunday school functions as may pertain to the various church, Sunday school, and social activities. At one end of the large area, which is to be used as an intermediate Sunday school room in the basement, are 2 specifically arranged and designed rooms, one of which is the kitchen, equipped in a modern way with everything that goes with the most approved kitchen: water, lights, gas, stoves, range, tables, shelves, in fact, everything that the most exacting housewife would want in a well-arranged kitchen. Opposite this room is the pastor's study, 12 by 16 feet, with a floor so arranged that the entire floor of the basement may be scoured or covered with water and not interfere with the floor of the study in the least, the floor of the study being some 2 inches higher than the floor in other parts of the basement. To the left of the rostrum is the office of the secretary of the Sunday school. In a word, The following departments are in the basement: beginners, primary, intermediate, and senior. The auditorium proper is on the second floor and is magnificent in size and appointment. The seating capacity by certain arrangements of sliding partitions in time of crowd congregation will be at least 1,200 people, making this easy the largest auditorium in Center and perhaps the largest in East Texas. There are 4 entrances, one on either side, and 2 front entrances on Tenaha Street. A large gallery adds to the seating capacity. The pipe organ, pulpit, or pastor's stand and choir will be at the west end next to Tenaha Street. At the opposite end are several classrooms for advanced Sunday school students. The choir will have a seating capacity of 44 people. Several other fine Sunday school rooms, all built for the express purpose of good service, are arranged on the 3rd or last floor. The main auditorium will be specially lighted by an indirect system that eliminates every particle of glare or reflection. The plan was adopted after the pastor, Reverend J.F. Kidd, and a committee had gone to Shreveport and made a personal inspection of the lighting systems of the different churches in that big city. The new church is built along plans that ensure stability and endurance. It is being built with 3 purposes in view: a worthy monument to the ministers and members through all the years of the past, a suitable home for the development of a church, and its mission locally, and lastly, for better work in the years to come. It is a splendid building for whatever angle it is viewed, and the pastor and membership individually and collectively deserve the praise not only of the people of Center, regardless of creed, but of the people of East Texas generally for their commendable spirit as manifested in this splendid edifice. In 1930, our church had 340 members, and in 35-36, we had 660 members. In May of 1937, a committee was formed and money was borrowed to build the parsonage on Porter Street, which may have still been Tenaha Street. I don't know when it was changed. The building committee was R.C. Adams, chairman, W.C. Wyndham, W.A. Bridges, D.F. McKnight, Mrs. R.V. Payne, Mrs. G.L. Palmer, Mrs. J.M. Sanders. In December of 1937, the parsonage was nearing completion. The minister and his family, A.D. Lemons, moved into the parsonage a week before Christmas. In 1939, the formation of the Methodist Church was the union of the Methodist Episcopal Churches North and South and the Methodist Protestant Church. The Center Church became First Methodist Church. Church enrollment in 1942 was 512 members. In 1950, the building was remodeled with wider steps being added to the east side of the building, and Reynolds Chapel was added. The basement was updated to accommodate the Sunday school classrooms for children and youth. Our church began its support of the Lakeview Methodist Assembly near Palestine. This is a church encampment for children and youth of the Texas Annual Conference. In 1951, the Methodist Men's Club was organized with 100 in attendance. Also that year, Virginia Willis served as full-time education director. In 1952, a resolution was adopted for how Board of Stewards members were selected. This resolution followed the instructions of the 1948 church discipline. There were to be 33 newly elected stewards rotating off after 3 years. Those presently serving for at least 20 years. If they had been on the Board of Stewards for 20 years, they were allowed to stay. But the new rotation program started with 11 members were elected 1 year, 11 for 2 years, and 11 for 3 years, and then they would rotate off and serve 3-year terms. In 1953, a plan was put in place to raise funds for air conditioning to be added to the church building. Funds were raised, and this was installed in 1956. In 1954, the church sent a girl on a missionary education tour, sent upper rooms, which we still get in our church today. Some of us get them online, but you can always pick one of these up. They are for 2 months. This is the March-April one, the new one coming out. But these were delivered or were sent to college students and men in the service, along with a personal letter from the pastor, C.A. West. In 1955, C.A. West was the pastor and Inez Davis was the choir director. There was a devastating fire in the basement. The entire church had some damage that was repaired, and a new roof was added, and this was all insured and paid for by the insurance. During 1955, the church was making plans to purchase the J.E. Armstrong property, which was a house with 14 rooms where the present education building is. And this was to be used as a youth center and Sunday school rooms. In 1956, the Armstrong property was purchased for $7,500 and was remodeled, with Roy Woolley being in charge of all the remodeling. In 1958, the pastor, C.A. West, said he had 450 at the Easter service. A committee was selected in October 1960 to proceed with a building program. W.I. Davis Jr., Bob O'Donoghue, Fred Hudson Jr., and Heber Parker, along with board chairman Dr. T.G. Carroll and Pastor Roy Felder. They were given the following authority: 1. Proceed with survey and study. 2. Employ an architect. 3. Have preliminary plans and sketches prepared. 4. Estimates of cost of proposed construction. 5. Recommend plans for raising funds. And 6. Convening church membership. The church held a rally dinner for all church members as a means to begin the fundraiser for the present education building. And Cindy Griffin presented me with she made copies for me of all the things, because W.I. was in charge of this rally dinner. It's very interesting what went on at the dinner. In 1962, we had 677 members. C.R. Thomas served as minister in 1962. 1963 records indicate the church received permission from the district superintendent to mortgage the present church building in order to secure a loan to proceed with the building program. Walter Klingel became minister that year. It is indicated that the upper rooms, the daily devotional, were distributed to 2 hospitals, nursing homes, and the county jail. In 1964, the Sunday school averaged 239 people. The education building was occupied in August of 1964. Vance and I married in May, and we were supposed to have our reception there, but it wasn't complete, so it wasn't completed until August. In 1965, Lazelle Radcliffe had served for 9 years cleaning the church plant, keeping the grounds mowed and clean. He was employed by our church until the early 1980s. He was the only custodian we had for many years and kept the church in pristine condition per the instructions of whoever the church secretary might have been. In 1966, the average attendance for Sunday mornings was 260, with approximately 113 in the evening service. In 1966, Luella Runnels donated the property on Payne and High School Streets in memory of her husband, Henry F. Runnels, and sons William F. and Henry Neal Runnels. In 1968, the WSCS, our women's circles, had 103 members. The United Methodist Church was formed with the union of the Methodist Church and the Evangelical United Brethren Church. Center Church became First United Methodist Church, and this is in 1968. In 1972, we had 662 members, and in 1973, we had 652 members. In 1975, a committee was formed to build a new parsonage. Bill Ilo was the chairman. W.I. Davis Jr. was the vice chairman. Sammy Dance was the secretary. Other members were L.D. Batson, Mrs. F.E. Parker, Mrs. W.R. Boyd, Vance Payne, Bill Warren, and Dr. R.L. Clifford. The parsonage was built and Carlton Dyer moved into it in 1977. In 1977, we had 660 members on the rolls, and in 1981, we had 622 members on the rolls. Our present pastor is Karen Jones, and we have 471 members on the rolls. In the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, we had a very active MYF and UMYF program. In the 1970s and 80s, the youth presented the musicals Jesus Christ Superstar and Godspell. And also the youth and adults presented You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and other musicals. And depending on who the choir director, music director was, and I appreciate your listening. I still have much research to do. This is just highlights. It will take several years for someone to go through all the records that we have to glean what we need for a total history book of our church. I do want to share, this is our calendar that we are selling. I want to leave one for the museum. It has a brief history. Our mission statement for the church is love God, love people, serve the world. And our celebration statement for this year is 150 years to celebrate, 150 ways to serve. Now this is not a picture of it is a picture of a Masonic lodge, but it is not the one that was in center. We can find no record of pictures of the building that burned. We have looked and searched. Suzanne, very much so. This is the first church building. We have and that's the Armstrong House, so the church is probably where our present church is located, but it became in bad repair. And that is another picture of the building. And then they added to the back of the church, and so that's another picture. Then we have a picture of the education building and the old Armstrong House. Now this is a picture before the steps were added on the east side. It shows the two front entrances. And there was an entrance here and here. And they're still there. And this is most likely an Easter Sunday picture. And then this is the new parsonage. And I must have skipped Well, yeah, there's the Porter Street parsonage and the old parsonage. And then we have the last picture is the church in snow. And I brought a few calendars if you would like to purchase one, but we do want the museum to have a calendar. Thank you.